I would now like to give the floor to our guest of honor and another distinguished panelist, Dr. Najma Heptullah. Dr. Heptullah is the grandniece of the freedom fighter Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. Forgive me if I don't pronounce it properly.
Absolutely.
Dr. Najma Heptullah is the former deputy chairperson of the Rajya Sabha. She is the vice president of BJP, who I understand has done fairly well in the election. Congratulations. She holds both a Master's of Science degree in zoology and a PhD in cardiac anatomy from the University of Colorado at Denver. Dr. Najma Heptullah was the president of the Interparliamentary Union. Dr. Heptullah served as an advisor with the Harvard University Center for Middle Eastern Studies and serves as a trustee on the American Council Board of Trustees, Harvard University. Dr. Heptullah has authored a book on AIDS titled AIDS: Approaches to Prevention. She also written on human social security, sustainable development, environment, reforms for women, and ties between India and West Asia. It's my privilege to invite Dr. Heptullah to the floor.
Dr. Christopher, Madam Kathleen, Vinny Singh, ladies and a few gentlemen. It takes me back. This hall has got some very important memories, very significant memories to me. When in 1993, last century, I presided over a conference of Interparliamentary Union, women's part of the conference. And it reminds me of a lot of memories that since that time, we have come a long way in women's empowerment. Then again, in 1997, we had a conference for empowerment of women under the auspices of Indian Parliament and Interparliamentary Union towards partnership between men and women in politics. My commitment to women's issues started when Mrs. Indira Gandhi appointed me as the youngest member of the International Women's Committee for at the announcement of United Nations Year of Empowerment 1975. So it's many, 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 many years that I have worked for the women's empowerment, their issues at every level. Madam Kathleen has very elaborately outlined the issues, not nationally, not in my country, but internationally. What's happening in the not-so-developed countries, in the developing countries, and the developed countries, Western countries. I remember the largest gathering of women in 1995. You must be thinking I'm living still in the last century. But the last century turned out to be a turning point in the empowerment of women and the issues of women. Since 1975, we had many, many conferences. And the final one, the largest gathering of women, was in Beijing, where I led the delegation of women. The largest contingent of parliamentarians of any country went to Beijing, was from India. And we talked of the empowerment of women. We talked of the issues of women, the violence of women. Issues which concern not just domestic violence, but various kinds of violence. I remember we organized in the Parliament, under the auspices of the Parliament, with the help of UNDP, because I was the distinguished ambassador of the UNDP, the street violence, the campus violence against women. There are different kinds of violence. There is a physical violence which a woman can show to people. There is a violence which she cannot show. It's a mental torture, both at home and at the workplace. The humiliation, the kind of torture which she cannot even complain to anybody. Though there are many legislation, the most important thing to protect the women, as you also mentioned in your booklet which you have brought out, is legislation. I've been a member of Parliament for 30 years and a presiding officer or the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha for almost 18 years. And all the important legislation were passed in the Parliament when I was in the chair. And how Government of India or the Parliament of India has taken cognizance of the issues relating to women. You won't be surprised if I say that there are almost more than 40 legislation directly or indirectly related about women's issues, whether it's equal wages, whether it is domestic violence, whether there is indecent portrayal of women, and so many and so forth. The most important legislation which I consider, all of them are very important. They have to be implemented. The legislation are passed in the Parliament, the rules are made, but it is the authorities concerning which have to implement those legislation. In my opinion, in empowering of women, the most important legislation we passed was the 42nd and 43rd Amendment to the Parliament, which gave empowerment of women at the grassroots level, at the village level, at the district level. With 33% of reservation, we had almost 1 million women empowered throughout the country. And you'll be happy to know that now, reservation voluntarily, you know, we had very great difficulty in passing this legislation, which was defeated once in Rajya Sabha with the lack of 2 votes. And later on, it came back again and we passed it unanimously. But voluntarily, most of the states have increased this quota for women to 50%. And you can calculate how many million women are getting empowered at the grassroots level. And this thing is, the empowerment is gradually coming up to the higher democracies. It's an attitude which changes. I remember an incident many years ago in Maharashtra when a policewoman with our efforts and movement was appointed, and there were reservations for women in the police force to take care of the women's issues. A little skit we presented to the people where we showed that a policewoman is talking to a man, and the man says, she says, "Why did you beat your wife?" And she takes out her belt and starts beating that man. And the man says, "I would not like to be beaten by somebody else's wife. I rather not beat my own wife." So that was the effect this legislation has brought. I know there have been many shortcomings. I know there have been many issues, loopholes, which we have to still fill. But Passing the legislation is one thing. The police and the government cannot go to every household to take care of them. But of course, when it comes to registering the cases, we have found that there are many areas which still have to be covered. But organizations like Maitri, the NGOs play a very important role in getting this atmosphere, the attitude of people to change. I remember many years ago when I came to Parliament in the 80s, whenever there was an issue of women, all the political parties used to ask draft women to speak on these issues. And men were not concerned at that time, even in the 80s. They were not concerned. It's a legislation is passed, they will go to the central hall, have a cup of coffee, say, oh, women are speaking, you know, as if it was not women's lib, but it was women's lip, as they said, that they keep on talking. But the situation is today. I see in the Parliament issues relating to women, even men speak very vehemently. Very strongly they support. The change has come, but the change has come very slowly. Another issue is economic empowerment, which Madam Kathleen has also mentioned. If a woman is a bread earner, she is independent, economically independent, she gets a lot of confidence. She cannot be bullied around, but there too, there are families where a woman earner doesn't get her salary, is being taken over by the family members. As you rightly said, I think Winnie said it, that it is the inheritance. Most of the time, the families do not give the due inheritance to their girls. Though, according to the Hindu law, there is equal right, equal share for women. And according to the personal law, among the Muslim, it is not equal, but there is a right of a girl to inherit the property from her husband, from her father, from her son. So she gets a sizable amount of money. But implementation is the most important thing. The government can't do anything. The parliament can't do anything. But the parliamentarians, the legislature, the grassroots level, empowered women and men, and the NGOs jointly can take this initiative of changing the mindset of the people to implement those legislation which the parliament has passed or which are enshrined in our constitution. As far as our constitution is concerned, the framers of the constitution, they have seen in our preamble and the directive principle, it says no discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, religion, language, gender. And there is a clause in the Constitution which gives positive discrimination to women because they have been discriminated for many years. So there are positive issues, positive way of looking at women, and if there is any discrimination against them, to remove it. We have no legal problem in the country. I think we have far too many laws than we really need, because every now and then, when there is some issue, we pass a legislation. But how to implement the legislation? There are not so many instruments which have to be. I remember when we had the IPU conference. It was equal partnership between men and women. The title of the conference was Towards Empowerment of Women in Politics. Mr. P.S. Sangma, who was the speaker, and I was the deputy chairman of the IPU, a member of the Executive Committee of Interparliamentary Union. We jointly did it, and we said we are equal partners. And we had a New Delhi declaration in which we talked about empowerment of women, both politically and economic, internationally. And as an outcome of the recommendation of that conference, we have a special committee in the Parliament of the Women's Committee on Empowerment, which takes up the issues of women not only at the central government level, but at the state governments level also. And we have recommended that such committees should be formed in every assembly or legislative body. We have legislation against harassment. Abuse, of course, we have, but gender harassment, indecent representation of women in advertisement. But I have noticed lately on the television, there are serials which show, in the garb of saying that we are projecting it, there is a disclaimer saying that we are having this serial to project that so many discriminations are taking against women, but they are bringing out what is happening in the society. Sometimes these serials have good impact because people realize whether it is the child marriage, which is still prevails in part of India in spite of being banned. They bring the child marriage issues. They talk about torture by mother-in-laws or the in-laws. They talk about issue of women not getting their rights and property. But I only fear there's these kind of television shows may not indirectly make people to learn something, that how can they torture their family members better without their going for a legal redressal. I told Dr. Kristoffer that I'm not going to make a very long speech on the issues, because if I go on speaking my last century's experiences will take a long time. It would be nicer that those sitting over here should participate in discussions, question and answer, and that would be, I think, and I believe you are going to have a session for that. At the international level, when I was elected President of the Interparliamentary Union, I was the first woman ever in the history of 115 years of the establishment of the Interparliamentary Union that was elected as a woman president. And I always used to say, as a deputy chairman, and now that we have a president, we have a speaker, I have been almost 18, 20 years as a deputy chairman, that don't look at us. You may call us the role model. We are few who flew over the cuckoo's nest. But there are many more women who have to be empowered, who have to be given a tongue to speak. Their voices should be heard, what they want to say. And then I would feel that women are really emancipated and empowered. The authority comes to me or to you or the diplomat, ladies and gentlemen sitting over here, or ladies especially, sitting over here, comes from their chair. The authority comes from the chair. When I used to preside in the House, even the Prime Minister would sit down if I tell him to sit down. But that doesn't mean that a woman is empowered. I would feel the empowerment of women when an ordinary girl as a daughter, a girl as a sister, a woman as a mother, and a younger woman as a wife is taken seriously by her family members. What she says, what is her opinion, is taken seriously by the family she is living in. And that would be the day I would feel the efforts I have put, and many millions of women all over the world have put in empowering the women, will be the day when we would say, yes, women are empowered. I'll tell you very interesting, you are sitting before me. You remember then we applied for the Delhi Gymkhana membership. I was told that I should bring my husband. I said, why? My husband hasn't applied for it. I have applied as an individual. They told me, no, we like the couple. I said, my husband doesn't live here, he lives in Bombay. And even if he was living here, I won't bring him for an interview. You remember? And then I said, if you discriminate me just because I'm a woman, I'm going to take up this issue on the floor of the House and say, how can you discriminate between a woman? And suppose somebody is not married or is a divorcee or a widow, she can't get the membership of a club. And then they realized their mistake and they gave membership to me. Now, these are inborn discrimination against women. At every step, we have to fight these discrimination. Laws are there. We don't need any more laws. Implementation of those laws are very important. It is the responsibility of the government, of the police, of the implementing authorities to take it seriously. But most important, and I underline it again, that is the responsibility of our people, the awareness, the set of mind have to be changed, that they should not discriminate. There are many issues. The women are, they are killed before they are born. The abortions take place because we have a law against it, that you cannot do screening to find out the coming child, which is not yet born, is a boy or a girl, and people abort the child. These are the things which is inherent in the family. Until and unless women are respected, they are considered as an asset, not as a liability. Till then, we'll have to keep on working to make the women an asset and not a liability. Thank you very much.
Not at all. Thank you very much, Dr. Heptullah, for your wise words and inviting us all into your vast national and international experience.